Going to see the band live.
Yeah, going to see the band live, live their lives.
Yep.
What do you think Live is doing? Are they alive?
Well, I think they've replaced the lead singer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's weird for a band. Like, it's interesting to have a band where like the lead singer's vocals are such like the defining point.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Alice in Chains. I mean, the guy that if your guy dies, you gotta do something. But Lane Staley, whoever they got to replace him, actually does a pretty good job. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
But still not quite the same because it's just not the same dude. But
right.
I'm trying to think of somebody who sounds like the guy from Live because he very much sounded like a grandpa to me. Like he had like a certain timbre in his voice that made me feel like he was just much older. Like he was like 50.
Okay. I think he was also bald too, which didn't like.
Right. Yeah, I think that's part of it too. Is I just imagine him as like an older man, too old, the oldest.
The oldest man.
The oldest man so far.
Well, then it's appropriate that he's in a band called Live.
That's true because he's lived more than anybody.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. That's good. Maybe that's why he calls his band Live. They're like, oh, how long have you been alive? He's like, more than anyone.
Right.
They said, well.
That's like why Less Than Jake named their band that, is because they are the least than Jake.
Yeah, how many band members do you have named Jake? 0. That's less than.
Yeah, if Jake had a band, he would automatically have more.
That's right. Any Jakes are currently equal to at least one. Trying for fun. How are you this week?
Oh, I've discovered a lot of new continents.
Ivanka Trump.
Yeah.
She's one of them.
She is a continent unto herself.
She's got her own rulers. There's
there's a whole measurement system.
Poor thing, that woman.
How are you doing?
I'm great.
Good.
I'm great. I came back from a date.
Ooh, romance.
We ate food and watched. Well, we didn't watch anything. We watched each other eat food, and then we talked.
It's a quality date. To me, that like when you start incorporating many activities into a date,
mm-hmm.
you run the risk of making the date less about the human interaction that's occurring,
mm-hmm.
and make it more about the mini golf game that you're playing.
That's true. We did not play mini golf. We talked, we ate food, and then we got ice cream and talked while getting ice cream, and then walked away from the ice cream after it was done and continued talking.
That sounds good.
It was good. It was a fun.
I'm sad that you left the ice cream behind, but
I finished it, so it's actually I guess mostly with me. But there's like the residue in the cup that I didn't get to take.
Okay.
Yeah, I left a lot of it on the table on accident too, because I'm an adult man and I know how to use a spoon. So, no, it was fun though. We just chilled and hung out and talked, and it's pretty rad. So I liked it.
Good.
Yeah. How was your night?
Pretty good. Had some dinner. Just finished up some laundry, and
it's a big one.
What did I eat for dinner? I had green chili pork burritos.
Was it perfect?
Pretty perfect. Yeah, maybe not the most perfect, but like on a scale of 0 to perfect, probably like 8 perfects.
That's very good. Okay.
Yeah.
It's very close to 10 perfect.
It is.
That's good. Okay, I'll look at that guy. There he goes.
Yep. He goes away.
He does. He does. He's gone now. He goes away. Talking in like an active tense is always really funny to me. I eat.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have some fortune cookies. So tonight we're gonna play a little game called "What's Your Fortune?"
Okay.
It's built.
So how many fortune cookies do you have?
2.
2. Okay.
Yeah. So I've got 2 of these. One's gonna be mine. One's gonna be yours.
Okay.
Which one do you claim?
I would actually like to donate mine to all of our listeners.
Okay. So then, which would you like that to be?
I think that the one in your right hand is the one for you.
This one is mine.
Yeah.
Right, so we're gonna open up. Should I do mine first or the listeners first?
I think you should do yours first, and I will join the listeners. I'm just inviting them to partake in my
participate in the cookie.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I don't really feel like eating this right now because I'm very stuffed. So I'm gonna objectify the cookie and turn it into just a fortune. Okay. Cucumber, huanghua. All right. This is my fortune.
Okay.
Courage to be great lies deep within each of us.
That seems like it's better for the group fortune since.
Yeah. Yes, it's already pluralized. Okay. All right. So now we're going to go ahead and do a different fortune. The real fortune. This is the fortune that belongs to all of our listeners. Should they be interested? Okay. We have the Q&A thing up. I don't even know if we're going to get anybody tonight because people, I don't think, care about the Cyber Zone at 9:30.
Yeah, we messed with their equilibrium.
We did, and we just toppled them over on their bikes.
We just gave them a little push.
That was it. They fall down. Sugar. Tang. I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm not a Chinese people. Well. Life is full of little decisions, like white or brown rice.
All right, guys. Remember.
Sucks. Yeah. Okay.
I chose poorly for all of us.
You did. For me, that would have been good because my decision tonight was to have brown rice.
You had brown rice tonight?
I had brown rice with my Pei Wei spicy chicken.
Oh, so spicy.
It's pretty good. And then the listeners just got that instead, so that sucks.
Yeah.
So.
Oh well. Maybe you guys need to go pick a rice.
Go find a rice, distinguish between the two, and then decide.
Yeah.
What have you been playing this week?
Golly, not a lot. I'm about to start my weekly achievement grind. So I'm actually downloading every single free game on the Xbox One.
Sure.
Which is currently at a total of 36.
Wow.
So, like, combined with all of the games that have been made backwards compatible, this is actually something I wanted to talk to you about.
Sure, let's talk.
I own currently on disc.
Yeah.
116 Xbox 360 games.
Okay. Pretty good chunk.
As of right now, 12 of them are backwards or compatible with the one.
Okay.
So I'm hitting right above 10%.
Okay.
Does that mean that so far, because it's been like what, a year and a couple months, year and 3 months since they've introduced backwards compatibility?
Approximately, yeah.
Do you think that means that this is a success so far, or leaving a lot to be desired so far?
Well, I know that a good chunk of the backwards compatibility also has shown up in DLC titles. Are you counting those as well?
I am not counting those, and I have a significant number of those, but I also have a significant number of Xbox Live Arcade games.
Sure.
So just strictly speaking about because they said like, yeah, the games you downloaded will carry over, and the marketplace kind of carries over, so in a way that makes sense. But when they announced it, they really pushed like, oh, all you have to do is take the disc that you own and put it in the drive, and boom, you're in.
Right. So
in that regard, strictly speaking about retail titles that people have purchased and hung on to.
Yeah. It's tricky. I think the biggest the trepidation I have with them announcing backwards compatibility is that it's largely limited. And unlike the Xbox 360's backwards compatibility with the original Xbox, we have a system that is completely capable of playing all these things with no issue now. I mean, multi-disc titles I hear they're working on. They
actually have one ready to go.
Oh, do they hit one? Oh, which one did they put out there?
Deus Ex Human Revolution Director's Cut.
Okay.
And they have also announced that Blue Dragon is currently being worked on.
Okay. Well, that's kind of exciting, but I still feel that like it's very difficult to say, hey, the Xbox One is backwards compatible, but like in that huge like asterisk right there is still like we get customers who walk in and they say, oh, can I play this game on my Xbox One? I heard it does this now, and it's still like the list is very finite comparatively. And we have a printed out list of the original Xbox games compatible on the 360, and that's concluded now, which is nice. But it's still like it's about 40 and it's still kind of like there's a lot of arbitrary titles in there.
Mhm.
And it's hard for me to still want to bill the Xbox 360 as back, or the Xbox One as backwards compatible when you still have an extremely limited average. You know, like if you consider the whole library versus what is actively out there, it probably falls pretty in line with what you've got on your collection versus what you can play. I'd say 10-15% right now, because there's a good chunk of 360 games, yeah?
How many there are total?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a significant number. I want to say it's close to 1,000.
Okay.
960. No. 1,173, and that's all regions.
Okay. Okay. So it's still hard for me to want to bill it as backwards compatible when it's, you know, kind of compatible. Like, you know, your PS3 can play PS1 games. It's backwards compatible.
Almost all of them.
Yeah, I mean, there's like a very small handful. Or your Wii U can play your Wii games. Your 3DS can play your DS games. It's hard because I don't like to announce something as having a feature when it's, I mean, tertiary. It is very third rate in the regard that it can, to an extremely limited extent. Sorry, I'm not content. So, is that a tent full of a content?
I think it's a convention about tents.
Oh, good. Tent content 2015,
Yeah.
16. Because it spans 2 years because you live in your tent for a year and a half.
Yeah, it runs from September 13th, 2016 until September 11th, 2017.
But it's still billed as 2015, 2016.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Just to make sure that like they get people who are like, you know, you hear that after 2015 has already passed, and so you're intrigued. It's the
right. Like, oh, did I miss it? Oh no, I didn't. Good.
Right. Exactly. You want to be part of this subgroup. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So that's kind of a bummer to say. You know, we have this. Like, if you're like, dude, I got all the Nintendo Powers, and then you had like 8 of them.
Yeah.
That's sort of like what it's, you know.
Yeah, so it started June 15th. So we are about to hit 14 months.
Okay. 14 months, a decent chunk. And I mean, they chose some really good stuff, too. I know they're really listening to popularity because it's hard to get everything compatible.
Yeah. And understand, too, if you're not familiar with this data, like if you're into the downloadable titles that they released over the 360's lifespan, most of the heavy hitters are on there.
Yeah.
Like a lot of fantastic download-only games are available in this fashion. And to me, that kind of makes sense because from a historian standpoint, from a preservationist standpoint, I bought all of those 360 downloadable titles. I've bought PSN games. I've bought WiiWare and Virtual Console. And the fear has always been for me, do I want to delete this from my hard drive? Because while, yes, I can always re-download it, what do I do when they kill the servers? Because early adopters of Xbox Live will remember that the original Xbox had an Xbox Live Arcade. And it only had about 18 to 20 games on it. But I think only 2 or 3 of them were up-ported to the 360 marketplace. And the other 17 are just gone.
Right, done. You cannot do anything anymore.
So I'm glad that there is more of those, just on the off chance that they do pull the 360 marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, that's not really what I felt that they pushed.
Right.
With this, and it's a great thing. And my biggest complaint would be that we've talked about before how, what was it, Mondays or Tuesdays when Virtual Console stuff would come out.
It used to be like Tuesdays.
Yeah, and that was like a calendar event for me where I would get off work, and fire up the shop channel and see what was available, or hit Wikipedia if I had a lull in my day.
Mm-hmm.
And with the Xbox One backwards compatibility, it's kind of cool because they basically just say, like, yeah, as soon as it's done, it's up.
Mm-hmm.
But that also means that there's no rhyme or reason as to how many games you're going to get, what date you're going to get them. Sometimes they release like four games on a day, and then the next day they're like, oh, and this one too. So that's cool, but it also removes the potential for any sort of build-up or like excitement for the next
schedule. Yeah, it would be really, really nice every Friday, or every other Friday even. You know, because I understand, I think with the world of video games, there's something that needs to be considered, and this is across a lot of topics we can cover tonight. Legality simply exists.
Mhm.
It is sometimes the company enforces it. Sometimes they have no choice, but like, and they want to act otherwise. But there's red tape when it comes to legal issues, copyright issues, and how things work. And with Xbox One backwards compatibility, these companies still have to regain licenses from third parties to say, hey, Rockstar, we want to get Red Dead working. And Rockstar has to fine tune and tweak and make sure everything's good to go, provide them with a splash screen, and ensure on their end, a whole list of tests to make sure it's good to go.
Right.
So, Microsoft has only X amount of control when it comes to like, we want this up here, let's pay you, some publishing rights. And it's hairier than I think people want to give it credit for, because why can't they make it all? Because, properties of other companies can't simply just be put up all over the place, willy-nilly.
Yeah, if they did a slap, because Red Dead has been in beta for like months.
A while, yeah.
Compatibility. And I think people are impatient because it's such a popular game, but you have to realize that there are people out there that have never played Red Dead Redemption, and if they were to look into it in order to play it on the Xbox One and it was a suboptimal experience, they would come away saying Red Dead is a bad game.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
And that hurts Rockstar's bottom line should they want to continue the series.
Right. Yeah. So things aren't always black and white when it comes to that. And it's a shame that it's such a complicated process, because it can be bad for consumer faith because most people aren't willing to look at the gears turning behind the scenes and why things are organized the way they do. But unfortunately, with that in mind, it's just that's the parameter that's set. Companies, they throw out their standards, and the consumers throw out their standards, and being met happily in the middle is a very difficult task. So
yeah.
But I find it weird because there are times like you said, there's no rhyme or reason, and one day you might just wake up and it's like, oh, these 5 games are done, cool. I didn't even know the Bionic Commando Rearmed 2 was on the list, and I just signed on one day and it shows up in my thing, and I was like, that's weird, because I didn't see any presser, not from Kotaku, not from Polygon, not from anybody, that this had suddenly shown up.
Yeah.
And it almost kind of bothered me simply because it's a game that I would have loved to know about, and I mean, ultimately it doesn't make a huge difference, but it sort of seems like games aren't being promoted as actively as they could, because you could also say, like, hey guys, check this out. If you missed this game last time around, now's your chance to really get back into it and check something out you never got the opportunity to, and really pump some people up. Because without these games being like featured as Xbox Live downloadable titles, it just sort of they're there, and it just sort of like a soft release, release. And I'm afraid that it almost makes their efforts in vain. They're pushing it out because they can, and nobody's going to buy it because there's just no reason to. People haven't heard about it. And I'll play my Rearmed 2, and I'll enjoy it. I'm very excited, but
I think a lot of it is that you don't need, I'm going to say this.
Yeah.
You don't need to market to people who want to play last-gen video games. There's so much content out for people like us on YouTube, in magazines, on social media, Twitch. Like everything that we want to play, we kind of know about it, and we are sort of patiently waiting for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's cool when I notice a game in my apps tab on my Xbox. I'm like, oh, I can download that again? Like, okay.
Kind of exciting.
But yeah, I think the general perception it's maybe a little misguided in that people think like, oh, well, what's the point in we're not going to spend money on a campaign to tell everybody that Rearmed 2 is out, because that doesn't make any sense. But at the same time, you don't have to do that. You could make a Facebook post for free, because that's the world we live in right now.
They hope that maybe the word of mouth or the social media will end up marketing slightly.
Something like that, yeah.
My biggest fear is mostly that it's like the situation where they don't market it, and so nobody knows about it, so it ends up just losing them money, and they go, well, we don't want to ever do that again because nobody cares.
Yeah. That's
my biggest concern is it's cool they chose Rearmed 2, but I wouldn't have expected that because there are other bigger titles, and maybe it was just Capcom was draw, pick a card, and that's just what happened to be, there that day. Because why not Rearmed 1? And I certainly know why not 2009, which I'm still actively hoping for, even though I own it in like 1,000 different forms. But it seemed like a strange choice to
I've always wondered about this, where like for the most part it's easy to emulate a system like the Nintendo or the Game Boy. Like unless you get into really tricksy hardware stuff, once you build your architecture, everything should theoretically work.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't help but wonder if backwards compatibility on the Xbox One is the same, so that in getting this piece of code to work in this, like they sit down and they say like, all right, these are the 20 games we want to get to work, right? Mm-hmm. And so we have to get these architectures and these engines and these codes running on our hardware. And I wonder if there's just someone's job at Microsoft who is just basically in charge, who has this weird like prime user access where he can play everything backwards compatible. And his job is just to go through and make sure that things actually work the way they're supposed to. And if they do, by some happy accident, by someone working on getting like the way the vehicles move in Halo Wars, like getting that perfect, and then all of a sudden like, oh, that made Bionic Commando Rearm 2 work.
Sure, yeah. It's hard to say. I mean, because that was part of the mentality when it came to backwards compatibility for the 360. Is they're like, well, we got Splinter Cell to work, and the code is pretty similar to Barbie's Horse Adventure. Fuck it, you know. And then like, it didn't matter to them. It was something they were capable of doing.
Right.
So that's a good question. I actually really wonder what the architecture behind all of that is. That makes everything, you know, sort of make sense. If they just have like, you know, oh, well, Bionic Commando 2 Rearm 2 did work, and they just put a check next to it, submit it, you know, and they're like, okay, cool, Capcom, you down? All right. And like it just happens.
Yeah.
That's fair. It's a fair question. Do you think the PlayStation 4 Neo is going to have backwards compatibility?
I don't know. I think Sony's really content with going a software, like a digital software only approach. As much as people might not like it, they've done it before with the PSP Go, and I don't think they see any problem with doing it again.
Because the market already sort of expects it. Like, you know, it would be a personal expectation to say the new system will, when in fact the current system that doesn't is still selling absolutely fine.
Yeah, and it's always such a pleasant response to hear like, oh, and it's backwards compatible, because again, for people like us who just sit on all these old games, it's always like, oh, well, that's a special gift for me.
Right, yeah.
You're giving me the ability to access all of this content that someone who hasn't already collected and owned it is going to have to pay hundreds of dollars to acquire through your marketplace. Mm-hmm. But I get that for free out of like a loyalty to your brand.
Yeah.
That's why it always feels so good when you hear, oh, and it's backwards compatible.
Right. Yeah, nice little bonus. Yeah, because I mean, with all the talk about, you know, what potentially could be happening with the Wii U, little to no chance, you know, of any previous games you purchased being backwards compatible unless they're on the eShop. But even that, you know, what kind of difference will there be in terms of functionality for the controller and other features? Mm-hmm. You know, that's not assured. It's not absolutely, you know, a guarantee. So I have a feeling they couldn't want to do it with legacy titles that are like straight virtual console, but things that are WiiWare or Wii U-ware, I'd be pretty apprehensive about those making the cut.
We like to make bold wish list predictions on this show, and I'm going to throw one out right now.
Let's do it. There's no Mario games will work on the NX.
Yeah, it only plays Bayou Billy. All of them.
Bayou Billy and Bayou Billy HD, and then Game Boy D-Make.
Yep.
And then a Game Gear port of the D-Make.
Yeah, and then a card game.
And then Bayou Billy Card Fighters Clash DX.
Yeah.
I'd play it.
No, all right, so here's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Is it unlikely? Yes, but I find it interesting that the NES Mini is primarily powered by USB.
Yeah.
It has a wall adapter sort of like dongle, I think, but the main power cord is a USB power cord. So what if you could hook your NES Mini up to the NX? And what if Nintendo were just going to release these sorts of, instead of, because it is kind of a very Nintendo thing to do, instead of focusing on, hey, these games are all available online in the virtual console in the eShop. You can download them on virtual console and access them that way. What if they just sort of give us these big console amiibos, essentially, that we can have and we can use independently, but we can also sort of run them through our new system?
Interesting thought.
Like if they made a Game Boy Mini with 30 games on it, if they made a Super Nintendo or an N64 Mini with 30 games on it,
Mm-hmm.
and these things are all their own products that you can sort of, if you just want Game Boy games, boom, you got a Game Boy Mini. Which the idea of a Game Boy Mini is sort of stupid. It's a handheld that doesn't work as a handheld, but you can hook it up to a very expensive handheld.
Here's what you should be able to do. So the Game Boy Mini should actually, like, say it has like a HDMI cord on it or whatever, and you do have to set it next to your TV, and it has a cable that comes out of it to plug your controller into, but the controller is just a full-size Game Boy with a non-functioning screen.
So there is a smaller than normal Game Boy that you hook a full-size Game Boy up to look at a TV screen?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I'm into that.
Okay.
That's ridiculous enough that I want that.
I do too. I'd laugh. I would laugh. The Game Boy Mini. Yeah, I think that's probably what's going to happen, though, is the Game Boy Mini. But I do like the idea of them actually really sort of embracing. Will the Game Boy Mini have Reamped 2? Asks Morgan.
Do you think he means rearmed, since we just talked about that? I feel like he just got here and is feeding off your excitement for Bionic Commando Rearmed 2.
That's fair. Everybody is feeding off of Bionic Commando excitement because that's my number one excitement. Yeah, there's going to be an HD demake of it.
Unarmed 2.
Unarmed 2, exactly. Yeah, but there's no, you can't use your claw. Your grapple hook.
All you can do is move side to side and shoot.
Correct, and if you come across a barrel, then
game over.
You get a game over. The moment you touch the barrel, you get a game over. Yeah. So, did you play Rearmed 2?
I did not. No. Maybe I played a little bit of it. I played through Rearmed, and I think that was actually the first Bionic Commando game that I beat.
I loved that game, man. Actually, it was
really good.
Loved it. Rearmed 2 was actually very fun. It was definitely worth playing. The charm is not quite as robust as the original, but it's still very fun, very funny, and you can jump.
Okay, so in Unarmed 2, you would not get a game over at a barrel.
Unarmed 2, Reamped 2, you would. No, Unarmed 2, yeah. But no, in Unarmed 2, you can't jump.
Okay.
But in Rearmed 2, you can. So, but I really enjoyed that game. I was actually really only upset because I think I got every achievement in the game except for beating all the levels on hard mode, and the game didn't classify it. I beat it on hard mode, and the game didn't calculate it properly, so I never got the achievement. But ultimately, again, it's inconsequential because I love the game so much. I played through it several times, but it's nice to get the recognition, but not necessary. Though, if I re-download it on the Xbox One, I'll probably end up shooting for that again. Grappling hooks, man. That's all I want.
They are. Well, have you seen? I posted a video. I think you did see that they are adding grappling hooks to Rocket League next month.
That's the most important thing. Yeah. No, quite possibly ever.
It just looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It looks like they Smash Bros. Rocket League in a good way.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Before I forget, also Rearmed 2, the biggest difference is that he has a mustache.
Oh.
Yeah, he grows a mustache.
Is it like a mini game? Is it like a mustache growing?
I wish, yeah, you have to water it and take care of it, kind of like a Nintendogs or whatever. No, great little game though. Now that it's backwards compatible, it should definitely be considered. One to look out for.
Yeah.
But backwards compatibility. No, there was something. Was it backwards compatibility? No, it was legal stuff.
Yes.
Which is also the Nintendo Power that had been archived was taken down at request of Nintendo.
Yes.
Which, it's tricky because a magazine like EGM or GamePro, they're independent magazines featuring third-party content, but Nintendo Power Magazine was owned by Nintendo. And I mean, it sucks they got taken down. Absolutely. I'm not like, thinking, you guys gotta deal with it because this is how the law works. But unfortunately, this is how the law works. And I think if anybody were to work in like a legal office for a day, it would change a lot of perspective on just why things like this have to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because even companies who want, like, I'm sure Nintendo would be like, dude, this would be super cool if we could. But there's red tape. There are issues that go behind this. And if you want to change them, it can be extremely expensive. So is it worth a company's time, money, and effort to change something that does not benefit them? It maybe benefits the fan base, might be an act of good faith, but that's also, even if you're a company with billions of dollars, like, I don't know, that's not necessarily something that you want to do when you could put it elsewhere.
John, I'm going to ask you a question.
Ask me a question, Michael, right on.
What if it were possible that Nintendo, from a legal standpoint, is secretly actually one of the coolest companies out there,
mm-hmm.
and they've just got the wool over everyone's eyes? Okay,
okay, I'm listening.
Here's what I'm thinking, because I thought about this. Do you remember a few years back, someone was doing like a head-to-toe remake of Chrono Trigger for PC that was supposed to be like,
oh yeah,
PS2, 3 era graphics and like fully remastered soundtrack and like extra campaign bits and all that, and they got a C&D and it got shut down.
Yep.
The Mother 3 fan translation had a ton of press before it came out.
Tons. Yeah.
Pokemon Uranium just came out.
Yep.
After 9 years of development.
Yep.
The Metroid 2 remake was in development, and that came out, and then it got pulled.
Sure.
Either Nintendo their finger is just so far from the pulse of these things happening. Project M. Yeah. Either it's so far from the pulse of these things happening, or they know in a roundabout way, in a way that allows them to go into court should something egregious actually happen, mm-hmm. and say, no, we protect our IPs. We are consistent on this. But maybe they're letting these things happen because once something hits the internet, it really can't go away.
It'll perpetually exist. There's torrent sites and, mirrors and all that. Because, yeah, Nintendo Power's already been fully archived on Pirate Bay.
Yeah.
You can find it. That's just they're kind of like, you can have this ice cream, just don't tell your mother.
Right. It's like, all right, look, if you're going to shoplift, I'm going to look this way.
Right.
And it's on your conscience.
Right.
But I'm just going to look over here. And if that Snickers is gone,
yeah,
it's gone.
Yeah. I do kind of wonder that. Yeah, Uranium was a surprise to me. I actually knew nothing about that. But yeah, Mother 3 was certainly no secret. That's arguably one of the biggest ones. And Metroid 2, they've been talking about it for quite some time. It is interesting for them to not squash these things while in development and then to wait until it is released. It's a very strange kind of thing. I do wonder about that myself. That's a very good question. Because it'd be so easy for a company of that caliber to do that. And, the fact that they haven't even thrown anything on Mother 3, period.
They even, interviewed people who worked at Nintendo. I remember reading, anonymous tweets or whatever from, oh, we got word that, everyone in the treehouse is playing our translation when it came out.
Yeah.
And, yeah, great job,
Mm-hmm. And I wonder if, with the Mother 3 situation, I do wonder if that's simply because as a Japanese game that does not have a U.S. copyright, what kind of effect that has on Mother 3, which has not, to my knowledge, ever been requested by Nintendo ever to be like, hey, don't do this. Because Nintendo of Japan and, Japanese copyright laws do function differently. But to a degree where, is Nintendo of Japan just going we don't care? Whereas Metroid 2 shows up and immediately Nintendo goes, all right, we got to do this. We don't want to, but, here's the paperwork.
And they would never be able to say, oh, I wish we didn't have to do this. Because once they say that, it weakens their standpoint.
Correct.
But if they just let these things happen and then go oh, well, I didn't notice that. I guess I got to shut it down now that everyone's downloaded it.
Yeah, feign ignorance. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good question, actually. That's an extremely good thing to bring up that also maybe isn't considered very often, is that it does not get squashed before release. And, it's sort of like the best slap on the wrist they can give is don't tell your friends. But let's see. I'm trying to get somebody to watch the podcast. That's a very interesting point you make.
The thought occurred to me today that either they are being extremely generous in a subtle wink wink
Mhm.
way to their fan base,
Mhm.
or they just have the worst legal team.
Which I'd like to think that Nintendo, I mean, wouldn't, because as a company who has a billion IP that they want to protect, vehemently, this does really seem almost sort of like the best way to handle it, because you can't just skirt legal issues because you want to be nice to somebody. Like, this is the way it works, and so I I actually like this idea very much because it still exists and people still have access, and Nintendo's not going to go vigilante and start sending out teams of lawyers to all the houses that have downloaded Metroid 2 remake.
Yeah.
So I didn't think about that. That's a good question.
There you go.
Thank you. Yeah, this kind of stuff is tricky. Have you had a chance to check out the Metroid 2 remake at all?
I watched a couple videos. I didn't play it. That would be illegal, John. It's been pulled from the internet.
That's true. You're not supposed to do that. Yeah, don't do that, Michael.
Okay.
No, I wanted to check it out myself too. I watched like the intro to where like the ship landed on the planet, and that's the most of it I saw because I was at work today and we ended up getting busy, so I didn't get a chance to actually look at any of it. But it looked great. I mean, bright colors, beautiful looking skies, assets pulled from Super Metroid. But most curiously, I wanted to know about the music. That's one of the things. And apparently,
I've listened to some of it.
How is it?
It's not for me, but I know a lot of people are really excited about the way the music sounds.
Okay, so like, is it not for you in terms of like it doesn't hit the Metroid? You didn't like Metroid 2 music, or you didn't like?
It's remixed Metroid 2 music. It just sounds a little too close to being like OC remix music and not what I would expect from a video game.
Okay, because it's pitching itself as basically a 16-bit remake, so you'd expect sort of like a 16-bit timbre to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
The same kind of like heavy bass that Super Metroid used, and
yeah.
And it did not offer those things. So.
Okay, that's fair. That's a fair critique. Okay. Yeah, I want to check it out at some point, and obviously I can't download it from the dude, but I'll grab it somewhere else. But I'm curious. I sort of want to mess around with it. I heard they rescripted the actual Metroid AI to make them learn better or fight against you better, as they evolve also. But
yeah, the first couple of fights that I saw were very much like ripped from the Game Boy game, but my understanding is that it gets much harder.
Which is cool. That's exciting. I'd like to check that out. I'd like to see a lot of the backgrounds. One of the most interesting things about a remake like that is with Metroid 2, the game was so difficult for me as a kid because in Metroid 1, you start off in like the blue tunnel.
Yep.
And then eventually make your way to like a yellow tunnel. And so like there's like a pseudo color coding to it. And in Metroid 2, with everything being black and white, it's extremely difficult to discern where you are actively because you're really sort of at the whim of like, did I check out this place? And when you enter certain hallways, like a lot of them look exactly the same. And I feel like having certain areas colorized or coded would really enhance but change the experience of the game by allowing you to be less lost. But also, there's probably a map feature, right? I'm assuming there's a map feature in the game.
I think so, yeah.
I would think so. If they're copying like Super Metroid or the formula from that point on.
I think it even uses like the corner map.
Okay, which is super helpful.
Yeah.
But I'm super curious about that because that would actually change, I think, a lot of the dynamic of the game in my experience. Would be, I'm in this room and the walls are green, and then I'm heading left and now the walls are blue, even though the room looks similar. Which is kind of a nice courtesy, but again, changes the game a bit. I'd say it could be for the better for sure.
Mm-hmm.
If you had any Game Boy game that could be remade into a 16-bit style, what would you choose? Besides Tailgater, that's mine. I'm not really, but that's one of mine.
I would actually probably like to see the James Bond 007 game for the Game Boy.
Oh, the one by Nintendo?
Yeah, because I actually like that game quite a bit, but it is sort of rough around the edges, and I think seeing it sort of with a new coat of paint on it might be pretty good.
Yeah, I think that'd be interesting to check out. Okay, so classic black and white James Bond. That hit like right before the Game Boy Color came out.
I believe so.
Oh, because that was still a black and white one. That's interesting. Did you ever end up playing any of like the Game Boy Color games with the rumble features?
I have Pokemon Pinball
It's a fun one.
and Vigilante 8, I think, are the two that I have that have Rumble features.
How was that on the 3DS? Or on whoa. Skip
Well, it doesn't work.
That's too bad. How was that in the Game Boy, though? Was it a fun game?
Really bad.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you know if that's weird. I picked something up on my desk and I think it was covered in bacon grease, but I haven't made bacon in months. Now I rub my nose and now I just smell bacon.
Was it Trent?
Maybe. Might have been Trent.
Pick up one of his fingers.
Yeah, just dripping grease all over my things. Do you know if the Game Boy player has audio fidelity issues with Game Boy Color games? Because some of the ones that I've played just sound awful.
I always wonder if it's just a compression thing in the cartridge, but I haven't really checked. I hooked one up today and was messing around with it at the store, but I could check and see. But I've never. Was it only certain Game Boy Color games or all Game Boy Color games?
Certain ones.
Okay.
For example, Disney's Tarzan and Vigilante 8 are two games I have that just sound like it could not have possibly been released with audio that bad.
It's a good question. I can check some of them. So, I don't know. I mean, in my experience, I haven't had any games that ever sounded bad on it. I don't think I tried everything I own, though. Probably just certain titles. Good question, though.
Okay.
We'll find out.
So, yeah, not a fun game, and it had bad audio, but I was playing it on a Game Boy player.
Okay.
So.
Have you ever tried playing one of the Game Boy video? I don't know if you have any of those. But
I don't. You've told me about this, though, that it doesn't work.
Well, yeah, it doesn't work at all. It just loads something up that says not compatible with Game Boy Player, so you can't do it. So consequently, we threw it into the Retron to try, and we loaded it up, and sure enough, it works because that doesn't care. And the reason it doesn't work on the Game Boy Player is because if you scale it up, it looks so bad, it's unwatchable. It's like if you're trying to watch a cartoon on an actual TV, except you just rubbed a bunch of pepper in your eyes, or hot pepperonis. That's fine too. But,
yeah, just stick them to your TV.
Yeah, exactly. It looks so bad. It's and I'm sure Nintendo didn't want to degrade the quality of because it looks great on a Game Boy, being on a small screen, but the compression is so nasty that on an actual TV it looks terrible. It's very, very, very messy. So, yeah. Which, that makes sense. Because you don't want to release something that everybody goes, ooh. I was reading something the other day. Oh, yeah, I want to talk about the Game On Expo after a little bit as well, too. We'll do that shortly. What should we talk about first, though?
First is the worst.
First, and I didn't even finish talking about what I wanted to talk about first, which was there's still always sort of the discussion of why Nintendo doesn't release games across mobile or PC.
Mm-hmm.
And this came up the other day too, and I had to explain to somebody probably very deftly, was that the benefit to own a Nintendo system is that you get a unified experience across all users. And, a big part of this discussion always stemmed from the fact that one day I was playing World of Warcraft when it had first come out. When I started working at Blizzard anyway. I was playing it on my little laptop, and my friend had his computer over, and he was playing it on his laptop, and his ran way better than mine because I had a worse laptop. And he was like, this is the reason I don't like PC gaming, is because we're both playing the exact same game. We paid the same amount of money for, this game, but it plays completely differently across platforms, and it sucks to have an experience that's not the same. And, nowadays it depends how much money you want to put into a PC, because, sure, you're going to get easily a better experience than you could get anywhere else on a computer. But that is sort of, I think, the one thing that, prevents Nintendo from ever wanting to, is because they don't want to release a game where somebody goes, oh, this runs perfectly at 1 billion frames a second with all the shaders on, and somebody goes, oh, mine runs at 15 a second, and, it hiccups, and my graphics look terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's why, they're always very conscious about releasing something on proprietary hardware, and it completely makes sense. But I had to pop into a middle of a discussion again the other day and try to explain that that's this company does things a very specific way, and this is how it goes. And then we kissed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kissed Nintendo. They kissed me. I kissed.
I kissed the customer you're talking to.
Oh no! This is actually just like on a forum. But I kissed the moderator.
Oh, well, that's how you end a forum discussion.
Exactly. Yeah, I kissed him. Then I left the room. And that was kind of nice. But Game On Expo, Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
2 observations I have. So number 1, it was very fun. Number 2, I can see why people in Arizona just die from walking around. Because it was so much hotter there than I've been in Arizona in about like a year and a half, 2 years maybe. And I remember it being hot, but I don't remember it being like lethal. And there was one day where we were only there. It was like the day we were leaving. We were there for just a couple hours. And I walked to my car at like 1 in the afternoon, which is admittedly one of the hottest times of the day. And on the way to the car, I was like, I could pass out from this. And then I got into my car to start it up. And I was like, I will certainly die before the AC kicks in high enough for me to cool down. And I'm very impressed with anybody who can live there, which is a lot of people, of course. But that's very tenacious, and I admire all of you for braving such an incredible amount of heat.
It's all relative, you know?
Yeah, it is. It's crazy. Some people prefer it, actually. Some people really like that.
Yeah.
That makes me happy, but it's too much for me, you know? And as hot as it is here, it's way less hot, and I can deal with that. So, but it was really fun because the gathering was by a YouTuber of the name of Gamester81, really nice man named John. And he put on this expo, invited a bunch of guests down. He had Jen Taylor, the voice of Cortana and Peach. He had the guy who's the voice of Master Chief. I don't remember his name at all. He had Johnny Millennium from the Happy Console Gamer. He had Alpha Omega Sin. He had, what's his name, Pete Dorr. Just a bunch of YouTubers around. The guys from the Game Chasers. And just people hanging out and playing games and talking to each other. He had Pat the NES Punk was there, and I talked to him a couple times, and he was like, well, you look kind of familiar. And I was like, Night Trap, Stolen Amiibos. And he was like, whoa, dude, sorry about that weird picture, because he posted a picture of me looking like some, I don't know, creepy pedophile-looking dude. And I don't care. It didn't bother me. I laughed, but he was a really, really nice guy, and he has like, so we talked a couple years back about like making like an NES Atlas, basically.
Yeah,
we basically did that. So, and it's bound, it's hardback, it's colorful, it's got like a huge description of the games, and then like sort of his own personal take on it. So, we don't need to do that.
Okay.
Yep, it's done.
That's good.
You buy one for the store. You don't have one there because actually it's a really cool resource. So I might actually end up doing that. But the highlight of my trip was actually meeting Johnny Millennium, the Happy Console Gamer. Because we got to end up like interviewing him back in his hotel room away from all like the hubbub and like people, and we ended up chatting outside of the interview for like a good half an hour, and then we all went out to dinner and chatted for like another hour and a half and just talked to him, and just one of the coolest, nicest dudes I've ever met. And there's nothing more rewarding to me than idolizing somebody to a degree. You know, it's not like he's truly like my hero, but is somebody I respect, a channel that I like. He's got a lot of really interesting opinions, and he's really cool. And then to meet him, and he's equally as cool, if not cooler, you know?
Yeah, they say never meet your idols because it usually leads to disappointment.
Right, absolutely.
They're human beings, and you've sort of built this persona in your head of who they are.
Mm-hmm.
That's not who they are.
Yeah, and it's cool because he was very, very real, very straightforward, very nice, just a really cool guy. There's another one whose channel I'm not really familiar with, but I know he's got a lot of really polarizing sort of opinions on this person, Alpha Omega Sin. I don't know if you're aware of him or like know any of his stuff.
I've seen some of his videos, yeah.
And so because he's very passionate about his opinion, he puts it out there, and people agree and people disagree, and that's totally fine. But like I had on the drive up there, I was like, well, I don't really know much about the dude, but I've heard he's a huge asshole. I've heard he's really mean and really rude and really whatever. And so I had no idea. This is completely unfounded, and it could just be from people who he disagreed with, and you know, which happens, and people take that kind of stuff personally. We met the dude. He actually had dinner with us and Johnny Millennium. One of the nicest guys I've ever met, you know? he was super friendly and super cool, and just, I mean, he seemed extremely just genuine as a person. Like, you know, he was talking to somebody, and like this dude came up, was like, man, you know, I watch your videos sometimes, and I have kind of a hard time in life, and like, you know, I like that you have your opinions, and I respect what you do, and sometimes I feel like I'm in not such a great place. And he just stopped him and hugged him. And I was like, damn, like that alone is such a huge gesture of, you know, instead of like, oh, go find something else to do, or hey, thanks. It was really interesting to see an extremely human gesture come from that. You know, that was completely unnecessary, but he did it, and it was probably had a huge impact on this guy. So I think it was really nice to be able to meet everybody this weekend and be like, all of them were cool. So I like that.
Good. That's good.
Got a bunch of interviews. We checked out some video games. Always interesting. One of my favorite things is going to stores. I've got an interesting story about a store that was out there where you want to check out their games, check out their prices, and I like to compare them to mine and see, should I raise the price on this? Are we paying too little? Are we overcharging? And, you know, sort of comparing. Everybody has their own ecosystem, so it's not to say that they're necessarily right or wrong based on their prices. But it was really fascinating to just sort of, you know, check out, oh, their Chrono Trigger, we'd sell it for 80 or 90, but they have it here for 120 or 130. Is that a normal price? Is that a convention price? What are they doing, right? And I did get a chance to see just a lot of really cool stuff all over the place. Got some neat art that I picked up. But we walked into this video game store on the second to last day as we were grabbing dinner one evening. And I was checking out some of their games, and they had Final Fantasy II with like a Universal game case for like $45. I was like, that's not bad. And it comes with a case. It looks nice, right on. Then we checked out a copy of Final Fantasy III, and we popped it out of the case, and it was going for like $55, and it had the Universal game case, and the game just didn't have a label on it. There was like a bunch of like price stickers stuck on the top, and that was it. I was like, wow, that's, you know, a little iffy, but okay, you know, maybe you guys paid something for it, or who knows, you know. But maybe I'd $30 tops is what I would charge for something like that without a label. But then we were checking out some stuff behind the counter. They had a whole bunch of boxed games, 64 and Super Nintendo, and like original boxes. So my buddy Joel was looking at some stuff. He goes, hey, how much is that one right there? And the guy looks at like a boxed copy of Ocarina of Time. He goes, oh, this is $150. And, you know, that's a little high. We'd $80-$90 maybe, depending on condition. Mm-hmm. And Joel goes, oh, no, right next to it. And it's a million seller copy of Shadows of the Empire. And the guy goes, oh yeah, it's 150. All the box games are 150. And I was like, holy shit. Like, I was kind of alarmed because I was like, are you sure about that? And he goes, yeah, I mean, just box games have a higher value. And I said, okay, I actually didn't really get into it much after that point. I didn't want to walk in and, you know, start like puffing my feathers and, you know, tell him what to do. But Joel immediately got into his phone and was looking at stuff. He's, you know, it shows me $20 on Amazon complete. And I was like, yeah, you know, just sort of shrug it off. And I think Joel wanted to be a little bit more, you know, pronounced about his opinion of the whole thing. But I was like, not my place to say anything. I'm not going to come in here and tell this dude.
Yep, it's an open market.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want. You can price it however you want. And it's not my place to tell you what you guys do things for. Maybe you actually paid $80 and you want to sell it at a profit. That's fair. Maybe you paid $10 and you want to sell it at an extreme profit. I don't know. But always interesting to sort of see what happens, you know, with stuff like that, and what different markets do and what different perceptions of value is. And, you know, because I'm not going to say that I have the definitive value, because I'm sure I've made plenty of, you know, business pricing choices that people are just like, what is wrong with you? Absolutely. You know, and I do my best to change them and enforce a better value on the market. But it's just interesting to see, you know, everybody's got their own thing. Or maybe in Arizona they're truly worth that much. I have no idea. Maybe Shadow of the Empire is like their number one seller like in Mesa. I don't know. What do you do when you go to a game market and you see something for like a price that is not agreeable?
Like, if it's too low, I'll buy it.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
If it's too high, I kind of like, oh, that's not worth that, and I walk away. Like, it's an open market.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever try to haggle?
I feel intensely uncomfortable haggling. Mm-hmm. I don't like doing it. I had a friend who worked at a pawn shop here in town, and while he worked there, he would sell me games at a markdown that I can only describe as insane.
Fair. Okay.
Basically, unless it was like a AAA, like super well-known current gen game, he'd give me everything for pretty much $1 a pop. So I got things like Mario Party 2 for $1.
Wow.
I got, like
99% off.
Yeah, I got like a stack of like 30 NES games for about $35.
Okay.
And I traded some of them into you. So like the Mega Man 3 that was in there, and like there was some quality stuff in there. And he told me, like, well, when I'm not here, you just got to haggle with them and you'll get the price you want. And now when I go, I don't like to go into pawn shops, but when I do, it's like, oh, how much is this game? And like, it's $5. And in my head, I know, based on the way that the economy of pawn shops work, that I can get it for probably $3 pretty easily.
Mm-hmm.
But I also go, well, that's at least how much I would pay if it was on Amazon with shipping.
Sure.
So I'm gonna, like, I'm not wealthy, and I like a good deal as much as the next person, but I'm not out to make life harder for anyone else in my quest to grab games, right? Because if I cut into a business's profit margins by haggling, and this is a thing that regularly happens to them, if it's not part of their business model, then I'm hurting the likelihood that I can continue to go to this establishment to purchase things from them.
Sure.
Like, I like brick and mortar shopping. I love online shopping, but I like the fun. I'll go hop all the game stores in town and I might not find jack. I might have to buy like a couple games that are just like not on my radar because I don't want to come home empty-handed, or I might just come home empty-handed. But I like the process of taking a couple hours a week or every 2 weeks and just record store shopping, where you're just flipping through everything going, how much is this? Does this look any good? Like, I've never played this. Right. I've heard this one's good. It's like $8. I want to pay $5 for it. And just, if it's too high, I just don't buy it.
Sure.
Because it's the right price for someone, or generally the market is fluid enough that it will go down.
Yeah.
If it's not the right price.
I think that's fair. I think it's a fair assessment. Because I think haggling can be a fun thing, but it also depends on the environment. And a store is not necessarily, I guess it depends on the store. Some stores really do set themselves up for it, even game stores. But like the flea market environment, the flea market atmosphere where you're really trying to just get rid of stuff, I think it's a really interesting and kind of fun place to do it, because you have a little bit more power to really, knock something out with some dudes. Like, if I bring games to a convention, I'm probably much more likely to say, I'd rather get rid of these rather than go to a good home. I'm willing to work with somebody. If they offer me like an offensively low price, maybe I'll have to think about, are you doing this because you just don't want to pay, or are you trying to start like an actual kind of fun, let's back and forth until we agree. Generally, when people come into the shop, it's something I don't mind discussing, but there are times when people just ask for half off an item, just right out of the blue. And that's always kind of a hard thing to do, because what it comes down to is, like, if somebody says, I want $20 off this thing, it's like, cool, I just won't call my employee and, Camille, you lose 2 hours because we're making $20 less.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And so, there's sort of things I have to think about in the ecosystem. Because we're not crazy wealthy at the store. We make enough money to sustain, we make enough money to grow, but we're not in a position where, we can just throw prices around willy-nilly and just live with that. So it can be tricky. But what I like to do is generally offer it to people as I'm able, because if I can make a concession for somebody because they're spending, $200 on a system and 20 games, I'll cut them a deal. I'll do something fun. I will offer that of my own volition. It's sort of like a thank you from me of you guys are supporting us, and this makes a world of difference for, my sales for the day, for my overhead, for my, whatever it's got to be. I will give a thank you in some capacity. But yeah, and I like when people sort of call me out to a sense on prices, because it's again just sort of fun to know that things can be shifting and can be changing, and sometimes people are right, sometimes people are wrong, sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong. But I like people being attentive to the fact that there's a lot out there to consider, and I don't always have the eyes to hit every last thing all the time.
See, I understand that, And obviously, like you're not going to get an alert every day that says like, hey, you know, Totally Rad is worth $2 more than what you have it marked up at today.
Right. Yeah.
You're not gonna reprice your whole store every day.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I find haggling just kind of like more offensive than fun. And I would like in your position, it would be hard for me to not take the small road and say like, oh, you want to pay like $20 less for this game? Well, let me check the value of it to see if I'm offering you a fair price. Oh, it's actually worth $30 more than what I'm charging you, so I guess it's going to be more expensive for you now.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would never actually do that. I'll say, well, this is what it's priced at. And I'll usually explain to people, one of the biggest things is because our prices are consistent with what we buy them for. And so I'll say, well, you know, we ended up paying this amount for this game, therefore it's marked up to this, you know, and explain to people that it comes from like, you know, there is a give and trade. We're not making $50 off a $50 game. We're making, you know, 10 to 15 basically. And you know, sort of explaining that to people in a way that makes sense. Oh, okay, you know, you're not just getting 50 of my dollars and calling it a day.
Yeah, we don't manufacture these video games.
Right, exactly. But it's fun because it's opened up a lot of people's eyes to the way things work. I think I mentioned this in the podcast one time, probably many moons ago. Some kid came in one day and wanted to buy some 64 controllers, and they were brand new. And I said, yeah, they're $15. And he goes, well, can you do like 10? I said, well, no, unfortunately, because we pay like 8 for them. He goes, what do you mean you pay for them? I said, well, we buy them from somebody so we can resell them. He goes, oh, I thought you got them for free. I was like, that, you know, that's the best business model of all time. But
yeah,
as that's not the case, it was something that I wasn't able to offer. So, you know. But it's fun because my favorite part is educating people as to sort of the process, the procedure, making it make sense to them so they can see why it makes sense to us, and that I'm not just sitting here, you know, just tossing random price tags everywhere and, you know, thinking, oh, Mario could be just worth $50 on the NES. You know, I'm trying to make it fair. I'm trying to make it fun, but I also have to make it, you know, reasonable for us. And most people end up walking away understanding that. And I kind of like that procedure.
It's good.
Yeah, it's fun. It can be a challenge at times. Somebody, let's see, Media Glitch commented, God, I'm not going to get anything done tonight if P, because I can't actually see a full comment on my phone. So that's all I got. But
is that on the YouTube page for this?
On the actual YouTube page, correct. So, if P.
P-Wings.
P-Wings. I love those things, dude. Beating Mario 3 and unlocking 4 rows of P-Wings is literally like handing you just like the key to the toy box, you know? I love it so much.
I'm at the point now, though, where I dislike them because they make a shrill trill noise and they sap any degree. Like, you're not even playing the game at that point.
That's true, yeah. Yeah, that's fair. Oh, and Joel says if people keep streaming.
Oh, well, I am not streaming tonight. Although I did just upload a video to YouTube. I didn't just upload it, but I just timestamped it to make it easier to watch, where I'm doing a new thing every week on my stream.
What are you doing?
Every week, I'm taking requests from the audience as to I'm trying to basically... I hate when people say, you know, like, oh, I've played every N64 game there is.
Yeah.
I highly doubt that.
Yeah.
I highly doubt that, you know? And certain systems get more coverage than others, and certain systems have a lot more to work with than others. But what I'm doing is every week, every Thursday, all right, boom, here's the console that you guys requested. Here's 10 games that you need to see that maybe you did.
Yeah.
So last week I did Nintendo, and that's what I just uploaded to my YouTube page and posted today, is I played 10 NES games that maybe aren't perfect, definitely aren't perfect in some cases, but that I feel... maybe, you know, you've beaten the marquee games for the system and you want a little bit more and you're willing to make some concessions. These are 10 games that you would definitely probably get some enjoyment out of.
Sure.
So this week I'm doing TurboGrafx because a buddy of mine said, I always wanted a TurboGrafx as a kid. My parents never got me one. What did I miss out on? So instead of doing like lesser known stuff, the console itself is sort of lesser known, and I'm showing people, hey, here's 10 of my favorite TurboGrafx games.
Cool.
Check these out.
I like that.
It's sort of like a live review show.
Yeah.
I'll go through 10 games and be like, all right, here's this game. It's got these things. This isn't so good, but you know, here's me playing it. sort of cold too. Like I don't really rehearse it so much any more than picking the games themselves, and then I just sort of play them live. So,
question for you though: what generation of console gaming are we in
right now?
Yeah.
8, maybe 9. I don't remember. I've lost count.
Do you think in the next generation or two, Tengen or Tenjin is gonna like make like this ultimate sort of like comeback?
Seeing as they are owned by Atari, or were a subdivision of Atari, and Atari currently has, I believe, 3 employees for the entire brand, I'm gonna guess no.
But they're Tengen.
Oh shit! Well, you're right. Okay.
Sorry. Because when you said 10 games, immediately like my mind sort of like heard 10.
Yeah. I only play Tengen games
on the 64.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I play Rolling Thunder 64.
If you could meet like any YouTuber, I don't know if like you subscribe to like a lot of YouTubers. I don't really. So it's interesting for me because I don't watch like a lot of YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
But are there any YouTubers out there like that if you got the chance like to meet or talk to or like interview or just discuss anything with? Are there any that you would choose?
Yeah, I'm not a super like. I'm not very loyal to particular YouTubers per se, but the one that I am currently probably the most enamored with is Video Game Donkey. I would love to hang out with. I feel like it would be too much. I wouldn't want him to like perform or be in character, but like I enjoy his content so much and his sense of humor so much.
Yeah,
and I would just like to just sort of chill with him.
He'd be really fun, I think. Have you ever seen his girlfriend?
Yes.
And watch like her video game channels, or not video game channels, but like her she makes like tiny cupcakes or whatever.
Yeah.
She is really funny and she's adorable. Yeah, and I like that the fact that like they're 2 very different personalities, but the idea of them being together makes me very, very, very happy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's adorable. Okay, good. Donkey's a funny guy. Makes me laugh. Okay. I picked up No Man's Sky. I wasn't sure if I was going to, and then I got a discount at a Best Buy for it. So I was like, you know what? Let's see what it's all about. What are your thoughts on the concept of this game?
The moment it was announced, I knew that it was a game for not me.
That's fair.
And the more I'm hearing about it now that it's out, it just reaffirms that it is even further away from me as a gaming individual. Which I'm like, look, I might in my head, I'm like, No Man's Sky, like because I've been hearing about it for so long, and right away I knew like I'm not gonna enjoy this game, but I'm okay with that because I still have damn near every other video game made to cater to my sensibilities.
That's true. Yeah, so it doesn't affect you. And it's weird because I was looking at this and I was like, this is a game I'm not going to beat. I know that because, I mean, what is beating it? I don't know. And I'm kind of curious to find out if I accidentally do. But I don't really want to know because the reason I like dicking around in this game, and at first I was just, it's basically Minecraft in space. Yeah. And as I discovered more and more how the game plays, because it doesn't give you instructionals or tutorials or anything like that, it just sort of says, here's, the very basics go function. And you sort of discover, and I like the idea of discovering things, but what I discovered that I like the most is that as soon as I left like the planet that I was on, I shoot up to space, and I look at the planet, and I go, click, and I go, rename. Okay, well clearly this planet's name is Perfect Corn.
Yeah.
Because I like corn, and I like if corn is perfect, it's even better. Oh, the galaxy name, Moisture Ghost. And maybe one day someone will fly around and be like, what's in the Moisture Ghost galaxy? And they'll fly down, and then they'll see, oh, the Perfect Corn planet. And then they'll fly down to Perfect Corn, and they'll land on there, and they'll be like, what are these rocks? And the rocks will be called cowboy nipples. So, and then there's like a creature roaming the land called, like, I think one of my friends named it Chocolate Cake. I don't know. And the idea of being able to, like, pioneer some sort of discovery. It was at one point some guy walked over here and was like, this is called Albuquerque. And then it was. And that's what everybody knows it as. So maybe one day some guy's going to fly to Moisture Ghost and I'll be like, okay, this is just Moisture Ghost. And, I don't know how long these servers will be up for. I'd imagine 5 years or something like that. But in the event that for whatever reason they existed perpetually for a long time, I'd love one day for somebody to discover my galaxy completely on accident and be like, oh, I wonder what's down here. And they go discover just a bunch of stupid shit that doesn't make any sense. And then I can just sit there like on my stupid chocolate moisture ghost perfect corn throne, just relishing in these dumb discoveries.
Someone else's experience that you sort of led them to have.
Right, yeah, and the best part about it to me is just naming stuff for no reason. There's no reason for any of it, and I love it. It's kind of like I play Pokemon not to fight, but to capture Pokemon and name them dumb shit. That's the only reason I play those games. I have no interest in anything else in the game other than naming them dumb things, terrible things, offensive things. So that way, when somebody goes to my Pokedex, they go, "Why is your Skarmory named Sex Man?" I'm like, "Because look at it." Or why is your Mischievous named Cunt Butter? And doesn't matter. That's its name. So it makes my experience that I share with somebody else, even if completely second-handedly. And that's the only reason I like that game, because I don't actually really have interest in getting anywhere, but I like the idea that I can just fuck around for infinity.
Yeah.
Even if I'm never going to do Animal Crossing, I'm never going to beat those, and I stop playing those eventually. There's other games like that I play for a certain amount of time and then get bored. And this will probably be the same thing, and I'm okay with that. But I also like showing it to people and having them come to my galaxy, fly around, and then name things too. That's interesting. I didn't expect that I was going to buy it, and then I ended up just doing it because whatever.
Yeah, I hope people have a good time with it. I just hope that I don't have to have the same conversations I had regarding Minecraft 5 years ago with this game, where it's like, oh, are you going to get No Man's Sky? No, I'm not interested in it. Oh, why would you not be interested in it? It's the best thing.
Oh, yeah. No, I can see.
Man, I just want to have my experiences.
I can see exactly why this is not your game. I mean, if Skyrim is not your game, this is absolutely not.
Skyrim has a plot. It has, quests.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
And Ronnie just came in and said, "Cunt Butter, I choose you," which I got to do several times to gym leaders throughout the years. And that's fun. Just some nasty little ghost chick just comes up.
Some guy is just running an establishment that certifies young Pokemon trainers, and then you yell that at him, and he's just like,
he can't
get out of my store.
Yeah, exactly. But he can't. He still has to sell me things.
It's got to be the worst. Thinking about that from a business ownership standpoint, running a Pokemon gym has to be one of the worst experiences, where you're just constantly dealing with cocky 12-year-olds.
Oh yeah.
And you cannot you have the satisfaction of beating them as a means of removing them from your place of business, but they're just going to keep coming back until they win.
I like what's fun about that too is say little shit comes in, he's got his 6 Pokemon whatever, and your Pokemon beat his ass so bad that he blacks out on your floor and they have to take him to the hospital. And then he just runs back in,
Yep. I leveled this rat one more time. Let's go.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, video games being explained rationally in a lot of ways is really funny to me. And there's a lot that, if you take them out of the context of just whatever the game they are, most don't make sense. And I like that. I like that a lot of games don't have to make sense. TNC Surf Designs is still one of my prime examples. Like it or hate the game, I like that it exists, and you can't rationalize any of it.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you were reading off of the TNC website at one point, I think, because you explained what their names were. Yes. They actually had with Tiki Joe.
I think it was Tiki Joe and Cool Cat with 2 Ks.
Yeah, Thrilla Gorilla, of course, and then I don't remember the dude's name, Matt.
Yeah.
I have to assume that's what his name is.
Surf Greg.
Surf Greg. Yeah. And I kind of like when a game is just so arbitrarily designed that you don't. The point is not to understand it; it's just to play. So,
it is what you make it.
It is. You could create your own lore for why Cool Cat is at the beach. Maybe he's trying to impress Thrilla's girlfriend. Ooh, the Itch Network commented, "Who are these handsome devils?" So this is actually a dude that I ended up meeting out in Arizona. His name is Spencer, and he has a channel called the Itch Network. In fact, we'll give some shout-outs to some of these dudes. He's the one who put us up for the entire weekend. Super nice. He has super nice girlfriend. I never met their daughter, but she looked cute in the pictures. And we hung out. We did a little podcast there as well, too. But super nice guys. If Arizona has weather that's too much for me, it has people that are perfect for me. all I'm going to say.
And they have an In-N-Out burger.
That's fair, but I didn't go there.
I've heard it's nightmarish because people from 2 or 3 states over will just swarm that. Like I know people here who will day trip to In-N-Out Burger. They'll make like the 6 or 8 hour drive to go get a burger and then come right back. And like that to me is a level of insanity that I cannot endorse.
Yeah. I know I still have a somewhat unpopular opinion where I would just go 2 minutes away to Blake's Lauderburger and have a hamburger that I enjoy far more than In-N-Out. But that's me, not talking about anybody else's tastes, just my own. Not crazy about In-N-Out.
You're a tastemaker.
I am a tastemaker. That's what I do. I'm like the chef from Cinnamon Toast Crunch before they all got fired.
Yeah, those poor guys.
Wendell.
Yeah, Wendell.
One of my favorite things was actually on the way up. We got to play video game trivia, music trivia, rather.
Love doing that.
It's such a blast. I have this app on my phone called NES Music, and you can download Super Nintendo and 64 and Game Boy and PlayStation and all Game Gear and all kinds of things. And they're the raw sound formats that are from the systems themselves. Mm-hmm. So like you're downloading NES music, it's NSF files, you know, and so like they take little to no memory for an entire game's soundtrack. It's fantastic. And so we had, I mean, dozens upon dozens of soundtracks from all kinds of systems, and we're sitting here listening to things, and you know, Little Nemo the Dream Master, and Altered Beast, and Batman and Robin, and I mean, just tons of stuff. Kid Dracula showing up, Contra Hardcore, just a whole amalgamation of just tons of beautiful video game music. And well, we went to one of the panels one day, and it wasn't really a panel, unfortunately, but they ended up just doing video game music trivia. And on this table, they put down all the games that they had just bought from a score like a day before for $40. And it was stuff like Zombies Ate My Neighbors and Contra Hardcore and a Wave Bird and Sort of Sedan and or Sort of Vermilion, and just like probably about like 30 different games. And so I went up there and I got RC Pro-Am music correct. And I won a copy of Phantasy Star 2 like with everything.
Wow. And
I was like, all right, this is free. I gave it to my buddy Joel because he actually really wanted it. And he was filming, so he didn't get a chance to go up on stage. But it was cool. It was really fun. I love doing video game music, and I feel I'm pretty good at it. And I love the stress of just not knowing if like they're going to play the one song that I don't know, or you know, yeah, songs. But I like the difficulty of, you know, because they did one or two that I wouldn't recognize. I played Metal Storm, and they played a Metal Storm song, but I certainly didn't remember it, and that was kind of neat.
Yeah, I love doing it. I usually do it with people who are like significantly younger than me. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because they'll hit like all of these, you know, to them, they'll hear a song and they'll be like, oh, well, that's clearly like God of War 2.
Yeah.
And like how, like it all sounds like just tribal drums and chanting to me. Right. How did you do that? But it's so iconic to them in the way that like I can hear damn near any Super Nintendo song and be like, I know exactly where and when this is played.
Yeah, exactly. And again, one of my favorite things to talk about with you whenever we do video game music is that you listen for a certain composition style, and in most cases, you can tell the company, you know, based on like their sound font.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, like, you know, you can tell a Capcom game easily. You can tell a Technos game. You can tell a Konami game. They all sound completely, a Sunsoft game especially. It's really fun to be able to like challenge yourself with stuff like that. And if you guys are listening to video game music, what I would do is like go put on like an NES playlist or a Genesis playlist. Genesis is a little bit harder because the sound fonts they choose aren't quite as varied. But it's still like it still exists, and you can hear certain composition styles based off of composers.
Yeah.
And it's really, really neat to try to like sit down and identify until you get to the point where you understand that, oh, this is clearly a Yuzo Koshiro song. Oh, this is clearly a Jesper Kid song. And finding out all that stuff. I mean, this is what Nico, the Wii Guy 187, that's what he does. He's like an NES mind. You know, he could listen to a song and go, oh, that's Tim Follin. And like it's like, holy crap, it's really impressive. But I would sit down sometime and just put on one of those playlists and really see if you can try to guess, you know, based off of what you do know music-wise, and try to see if you can identify these things readily.
Yeah, there are some traps in there, but if you just, even if you haven't played a ton of games, you know, if you go, okay, well, I've played Mega Man, I've played Castlevania, I've played Mario, and you just sort of take these sort of these templates into your head and just make ground level guesses and say like, well, this sounds like a Capcom. That sounds like Mega Man music. And look it up and like, oh, okay, that is a Capcom game. Like, and that helps you build that sort of knowledge base.
Yeah, it's super cool. And what's fun too is I think we were listening to Battle of Olympus, and I played the game as a kid, but I don't remember the music that well. And as I was listening to it, they used a lot of tricks that were in Rare games, from like slides and like sort of doubly sounds and all kinds of things that I was like, that sounds like Snake Rock and Roll, it sounds like Battletoads, but I know it's not because I know those songs. But the style was so similar that all I could think of was that it was a Rare game, and it was actually really fun to be totally wrong, but still identify completely with another company's style. So I like when stuff like that happens. I like because it strengthens me in terms of what I hear and what I can identify. What are some of your favorite sound styles from NES games? I mean, you could choose like the big ones, but are there any like that you have like in mind, or certain soundtracks that?
Street Fighter 2010 has a soundtrack that I forgot how good it was. It is on par with like Mega Man 5, especially in its compositional style. And I think that like that's one of the games that I covered in my video last week, so it was at the front of my mind. Like that's what I'm thinking about right now is the games that I played last week. And so, you know, Street Fighter 2010 sounds like Mega Man 5, and Kickmaster sounds like a really crazy like Castlevania 2 level. And Joy Mech Fight has the sort of bubbly percussion that you find in Super Mario Brothers 3. You know, so there's a lot of things like that. I'm always really impressed when Bubble Man stage in Mega Man 2, right? That is one of the most impressive songs to me, period, because it's really only, I think it's like less than 30 seconds long, but it's so tightly composed, and the thing that I love about Mega Man music is that it's written as if it were to be performed by a band. So there's 4 distinct parts that each of the sound channels play that combines this harmony. And when NES music does that, that hits me like right where I want to feel it.
Yeah, absolutely. I like to hear that. It's cool just thinking about video game music and just how important it is and what it means and what it can do and what they had to do with it. It's something we could devote like 10 podcasts in a row just to talking about game music.
You had asked me I think like a week ago, like what my favorite game soundtrack was. Do you have a favorite game soundtrack?
Are we going to go across all generations?
If it's, I mean, that's what you asked me, but if it's easier to break it down, like
if I were to break it down, it would probably be a lot more simple. I mean, it's still rough. It's very difficult. We were on the drive up there, and Joel asked me what my favorite NES song is, and I was like, "Holy crap, man! I can't even think of what I would possibly answer for a single song." But I love stuff that's high energy and stuff that's really indicative of distinction. Like in Mario 1, you have an overworld song, an underworld song, a castle song, a water song. So it doesn't matter as long as you're in that place. That's what it plays. And the Mega Man soundtracks always did stand out to me because they were, you know, you hear that song, oh, that's Lek Man stage. It can't be anything else. Oh, this is clearly Bubble Man stage. It cannot be anything else. But at the same time, there's also the Ninja Gaiden. The more I think about Ninja Gaiden as an NES game, especially for how early on it came out, I am so impressed that like not a lot of other games like chose to optimize themselves the way that game did, from a storytelling standpoint to cinematic to music. That game has a huge soundtrack, and there are certain times when they recycle themes, but they do it almost for like an emphasis on like character, you know, like when you I think of mostly Ninja Gaiden 2 because that's the one that I beat. It has like this main, you know, theme song that you start in like level 1-1, and by the time you get to the end of the game, like it recycles back to that one song as if it's like a reminder of like this is your determination, this is what you have to do, this is the final stretch kind of thing.
That is one of my favorite. Every time that happens in a video game, I get chills. Every time that they reprise the character, like in Castlevania 4, you have this awesome haunting boss music, and when you get Dracula to his second form, first of all, it's not a difficult fight.
Yeah.
But like getting him to that point, and then Simon's theme picks up again, and it's like, oh, like they're playing me out. Like I just beat the game.
Yeah, like they know that you can do it. You know, they've got your back. Yeah, the ghoulish orchestra in the background is just they're on your side, man.
Yep.
Yeah, that stuff is really, really cool. I think it has a huge impact. And Ninja Gaiden is, I think, 2 that I remember, is the one that first did that I can remember. And it was those games set such a precedent early on. And I always am kind of impressed that like a lot of games couldn't quite follow suit, because I don't even know what Tecmo's budget was at that time. But whatever they did it so well. I know the games are frustrating. I know they're notoriously difficult, but they're so well crafted in every regard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was interesting to see that like a game like that just was not met with the same amount of quality almost across the entire system, other than sequels.
There's something really great about the Ninja Gaiden trilogy, though. Not Ninja Gaiden trilogy for the Super Nintendo.
Right, yeah.
I'm not great about that, but they were games that for a long time I sort of kind of spit at, because I've been playing them since I was 6 years old and never broke through.
Yeah.
But it's like, imagine like studying a language in a classroom for 5 years and like struggling every day with new words and new sentence structure and like new how do you conjugate this in the past tense if you're talking to a female versus a male, like all these little weird complexities. And the second you beat any of the 3 Ninja Gaiden games, and you have to do it individually for each of them, but when you beat one of them, it's like going to a country where that language is spoken and just falling into a conversation. Like someone's like, hey, when does the bus come? And you just respond to them instantly.
Yeah.
Like Ninja Gaiden 1 is a hard game, but having beaten it now, it feels, if I were to go back to it, I would be more inclined to have fun and feel more confident in my ability to do it,
sure,
than to have to sweat out like, oh God, like I know I'm going to get to this point where I'm just going to lose forever. And that might happen.
Right.
But because I've done it once, now I'm like, I think I could do that.
Yeah.
I think I could just go in and do that.
Isn't that actually really crazy to think that like there are times in games, and I've been Trials is one of these games where I get stuck in an obstacle hundreds of times. Hundreds. But the moment I beat that obstacle, if I ever have to go like another go around, it's like, oh, I've done that before. It's not that bad. You did it the once, and suddenly, like, something that gave you hours of trouble, even if you almost accidentally got over it that one time, the next time is not as bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really cool that a lot of games can do that.
It's funny because I think it's a trick of the mind, which is dumb because you should be able to rationalize. People don't typically release video games that can't be beaten.
Right.
But there's always, when you're attempting something in life, there's always this kind of like pervasive thought that maybe this isn't a thing that I can do.
Yeah.
And that could certainly apply to video games, but I feel like the barrier to pass an obstacle in a video game is generally much lower than, say, if you were to try and learn how to fly a helicopter.
Right. Unless you're playing Airwolf.
Yeah, if you're playing Airwolf, then you should get certified before you insert that video game into your system.
Don't even bother buying the cartridge from the system. That'd be cool if actually games came with like free flight lessons. Just Pilot Wings. It's like, there's a coupon inside for your local airport, and they'll just get like a biplane down there and teach you how to fly it.
Yep, they'll put you in a penguin suit and shove you out of a helicopter.
Speaking of penguin suits, have you ever played Penguin Wars?
No.
I think they had it for the Famicom, but they released it on the Game Boy in North America. It's Natsume. And that's one that I ended up picking up this weekend at one of the video games. I bought like 3 Game Boy games. One was actually Planet of the Apes for the Game Boy Advance, which I didn't have. I had it for the Game Boy Color already, and I have the PlayStation version. And I don't think any of them are very good, but that's besides the point. I'm an ape fan. I bought Penguin Wars. I bought something else that I can't remember. It was one that I hadn't seen and I was interested. But I'll have to see if I can remember what that one was later. Penguin Wars is kind of cool because like it's one of the silliest, stupidest games, and not like even like in the sense that like it's Katamari, but you're a penguin standing on the side of a table, On the other side of the table is a different animal. It's like a mouse or a rabbit or like a rooster or whatever. And all they're doing is they're throwing balls across the table. And you grab these balls and you just throw them back. And if you can get all the balls to one side of the table, you win. Now, you can also power up your shot and throw it at the animal and knock it unconscious, so you can throw all the balls at it as fast as you can. And there's nothing to it. Like it's such a stupid idea for a game, and I used to play it all the time, and I don't know why. But I'm excited to do it again.
Nice.
Yeah. Do you have any games that, like, from your childhood that just you played it? I mean, we talk about Jaws all the time with me, but games that you used to play that were just sort of whatever. They're just games. They're nothing fancy, nothing special, or they're just dumb or bad, but that have a really special place with you, something that really resonates with your childhood.
Super Glove Ball was one that I got.
You played a lot?
For my 8th or 9th birthday or Christmas, and we didn't have a Power Glove, so you had to play it with the controller. And my brother and I were like hell-bent on beating that game for years, and neither of us we made it to the end of the game. I think he might have spotted the final boss once. We'd both been to the final level, and that game is just infinitely frustrating on every sort of, like, the controls are dumb and the concept of the game is poor, and oftentimes you'll have like one brick left to clear in a room and it will just be the hardest thing in the world to hit, which is dumb because all it really is a 3D Arkanoid where you can grab the ball as it comes back and like reposition yourself and like put English on it when you let it go again. It should be much easier, but it isn't.
It's Boom Blocks and Zero Mission.
Yeah, it's so difficult. And I imagine, on the Wii, I would actually kind of be interested to see that reimagined. But
I mean, Boom Blocks is like the close.
It's pretty close, yeah.
I love that game, by the way.
It's really fun.
It's so good. So between Super Glove Ball and Klax, like if they like fought each other, who would emerge?
I am not a fan of Klax, but I do enjoy it.
Okay.
So I think Klax is definitely the better game.
Which is more than me and Wario's. I am so impressed I don't like Wario's Woods, Michael.
You're impressed at yourself for not liking it?
I'm impressed with how much, like, there's a video game by Nintendo about Wario, and I don't like it at all.
No, you're not much on puzzle games, period, right?
Yeah, it's really... I do like them, but I'm still kind of limited in what my general enjoyment is. Tetris and... that's about it. I mean, I like Dr. Mario. I'm not crazy about it. I'm not, like, super in, but I'll play it. Columns I'm not into. I don't think it's a bad game. I don't think these are bad games. I don't even think Wario's Woods is a bad game, but like that game is I would probably rather play, like, if I actually had to choose between Wario's Woods and Madden, I would play Madden. I would play a sports game. I don't know why I'm so not into it. And I used to play puzzle games as a kid.
I was talking to a friend's girlfriend a couple weeks ago. I went over to their house for dinner and board games, and she brought out this wooden chest that had her Super Nintendo and like boxes and manuals and all of her stuff that she'd saved as from her childhood. And she was like, "I've got Wario's Woods, and I love this game." And I just wanted to be like, "Thank you, like, for validating my opinion," because I don't think it's a very popular game, but it's one that I rented and then immediately went out to buy as soon as my rental was done because I was just so enamored with it. And I've played it back to front many, many times.
What does that mean, back to front for Wario's Woods?
There is a versus mode where you play against the computer, and that has 2 difficulties, which are very different. It's not just like this one starts you on level 3, this one starts you on level 5. The computer is much more difficult on this difficulty setting than it is on that difficulty setting. There's a puzzle mode, which has 100 stages, I believe. There's a stage clear mode, which has 100, maybe 200 stages to it. So that's what I would consider for the most part. I think there might be one other mode that you can sort of track your progress in, but those are the 3 that I would say I've done multiple times. Okay.
I had a friend whose mom in high school really loved Wario's Woods, and I think she tried to get me to play once, and I had no interest. But I thought of two other puzzle games at least that I like, and that was Tetris Attack, which I love. I love Tetris Attack, and I love Planet Puzzle League on the DS. You can play with the stylus as well too.
Mm-hmm.
And
did you enjoy Meteos?
I liked Meteos. I wasn't crazy about it, but I liked it more than most puzzle games. And Picross.
Yes.
But Picross is absolutely my favorite puzzle game, if I had to choose.
Yeah, those are very, very good.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of my tastes were soured because when I was little, I remember renting Yoshi. You know, I knew it was a puzzle game, but I was blown away with how much I hated it. You know, I did like Yoshi's Cookie though, but it was probably just because the cookies looked really tasty.
I'm not really a fan of either of those games, but I do think that Yoshi in particular is so poorly designed. Like it does not even come close to fun.
It's weird because I mean Nintendo had a pretty good like hold on the puzzle market because they had their Tetris and their Dr. Mario, which were both immensely popular. And then I guess when the Super Nintendo came out, they're like, "Oh, people like Yoshi, let's do this." It was interesting to see them make something that was just not even close to the same caliber.
You know, but could Dr. Mario and making it about Yoshi?
I agree with that. I think that's definitely deserves commendation. I had a thought regarding that, and I can't remember what it was, but that's okay. How many puzzle games were there on like Sega? Because I can really only think of Columns.
Columns, the Puyo Puyo series was huge.
Oh, Puyo, yeah.
Japan. Zoop was on the Genesis.
I like Lemmings.
Lemmings, yeah.
I love Lemmings. Also do it for the soundtrack.
Yeah. And Lemmings isn't a game that I would think of as a puzzle game, but I mean, it clearly is.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, a different style of puzzle game. Like not.
Yeah, it's not a well sort of situation.
Yeah, yeah. Weltris.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hatris.
Hatris.
Capitalizing Bombtris or Bombliss. They have like a lot of really weird.
Wordtris.
Yeah, that's. Come on.
There was one that I don't know if it ever got a console port, but there was a PC game called Super Tetris that was by BPS.
Ooh.
And it was basically just Tetris with like bombs, and you'd have to like clear the bombs or use them to like not like Tetris 2 style bombs,
Okay.
but like actual like black orb with fuse.
Okay.
And they added a really fun wrinkle to the gameplay. I liked playing that game a lot as a kid.
Wild Snake.
Wild Snake is more fun than I think people give it credit.
That's one I don't think I ever tried because I think I had lost my gusto for puzzle stuff. But I remember seeing the box of it and just thinking it was the Battletoads level.
It's not a particularly deep game, but it's a good.
It's fun.
It's a good like 5-10 minute killer. Yeah.
Because I'm not opposed. I like games that do make you think. You know, I know as a kid, like Myst didn't really keep my interest because it just to me it wasn't presented in a way that I really cared about. But I like games of that caliber. Like the Professor Layton games have simple puzzles, you know. But then I was more interested in, you know, going from Myst to stuff like Day of the Tentacle or Sam & Max or Maniac Mansion, which is, you know, a character puzzle game, really.
Yeah.
But, and also, like, the clues are so abstract, you're sort of just a lot of shots in the dark when it comes to that kind of logic. But I ended up sort of attuning myself more towards puzzle games of that nature that had, like, a sense of humor to them. And
sure.
I think if I ever play like Columns, it doesn't make me laugh. Or Mean Bean Machine isn't a very funny game, so I didn't keep much interest in those. But I still played. Oh, when Tetris DS came out, good lord, I played that so much.
John, all I want to do is not do the work that I had set aside for tonight and just stay up until 6 in the morning playing Wario's Woods now.
Wow, that is the opposite of what I want to do. What kind of work do you have to do?
I've got some books to review. I've got, obviously, the stuff for the website that I'm still working on. What else? Got some blog posts to write, and I need to clean the living room. That's something I'm probably going to do tonight.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
I need to rev up my tractor.
Oh, dude, yeah, that thing, the John Deere?
Yeah.
Dude, you're lucky. Yeah, my parents wouldn't give me one of those.
Well, it's more of a Dear John.
Oh no, he's gone. That's sad. Okay. Well, I'm probably gonna go pretty soon because it's been a good day, a long day.
Yeah, it's already creeping on 11:30. So
Yeah. So a little bit past where we normally go to. Kind of a nice, good evening, just some good conversation. A couple handy J's under the table. Like,
hmm
been good. It's been nice.
yeah,
I want to thank everybody for watching. We had a couple new friends. So some of the guys that I ended up meeting out in Arizona, the Itch Network. Go check them out. Check them out on YouTube. There's also Gaming Through the Decades, hosted by a gentleman named John. Very nice fellow. Also with no H, because that's the way John should be spelled, as short for Jonathan. And of course we have Media Glitch, my buddy Joel, who runs an absolutely phenomenal channel. Production value is outstanding. Does a great job at what he does. We're going to be working more with him too. And of course, we got the Cyber Zone. We have our Blue Lady podcast. We have GARetro.com, our homepage. And you guys should check all of those things out. Bookmark them, subscribe, take a peek, offer some support. 'Cause it's really cool when you meet people in real life, when you meet YouTubers in real life that are of like a large caliber. One of the best things that I've heard them say is that it's not about the subscribers they have, the numbers, or anything of that sort. It's about having the passion that they have, putting it out there and getting a reaction from people. And so anytime you can help support someone and show that you enjoy their content, the incentive that you get from that is so great. Like imagine walking into school and you have your report that you want to show to your teacher on like whatever it is, but you show your friends first and they love it. Like that's the most inspiring thing on the planet. I don't know if that ever happened to me, but it would be the most inspiring thing ever. And YouTube content's kind of like that. A lot of hard ghosts, a lot of hard work goes into these channels, and really even taking like a moment out of your day to check some of this stuff out, leave some good comments, and show people that it's the smallest bit of encouragement goes such a long way. And
yeah,
and even if you don't like something, offer something constructive and say, you guys, what you do is cool, but I'd like to see more of this. Or maybe, like there's feedback is so vital to constructing these people's channels. And if you leave awesome feedback one way or the other, it goes such a long way.
every time.
Every single time. So go to Michael Radon's Twitch channel, watch him play video games. I'll try to get into it someday, but even watching this this weekend, I got so inspired to do more stuff with my channel.
Yeah.
The matter is, I don't know how much time I'm ever going to have to commit to something like this, so it just may not ever happen. I want it to, I would love it to, but it simply might just not be in the cards, and I'm okay with that if that's what happens. But to the people who do put a lot of hard work into this, go check them out, go congratulate them, and support each other because it's the best feeling in the world.
Yep.
Got anything else?
Go Olympics.
Oh yeah, the Olympics are on.
Yep.
Right now.
Yeah, they actually probably are on right now.
People swimming and people diving and people climbing up Trump Tower.
Yep.
That was weird. I think they captured him. I mean, captured. They cut out a window and pulled him inside.
Yep.
I feel like that was the scariest thing to me to watch them, because if they were struggling to grab this dude and he resisted and fell to death, God, man, that sucks. I was so afraid that was going to happen when I was watching it. So I'm glad he's okay, and he's in jail. I think that sucks.
Yeah, I believe so.
You're not supposed to do that, unfortunately.
Don't climb buildings.
Yeah, neat as it is, you're not.
There's a reason that Spider-Man is a vigilante.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Well, thank all you guys for watching. GARetro.com, and we'll be back next week with more from your favorite VJs, Carson Daly and Jesse.
Oh, I hate Jesse. Why couldn't you have said I've forgotten all of their names.
Matt Pinsfield.
Yeah, I love Matt Pinfield. Yeah. Let's go with him.
Kurt Loder, Tabitha Soren. I guess they just did the news.
I'm trying to think the old ones, like Kevin. There's a Kevin in there.
Yeah. What's her name?
Downtown Julie Brown.
Oh, I can't remember. No, well, maybe.
Kennedy.
I liked Kennedy. There was another one though, and she was a VJ. What she was, I think, in Dumb and Dumber. She was like the chick that was part of like the bad guys, and I think she actually used to be an old VJ. I can't remember her name though.
Hmm.
I think I had a crush on her as well at some point. Yeah, it wasn't Kennedy. It was somebody else. Yeah, some other VJ chick. But thank you. Yeah, I'm glad you're trying to help out because I don't. You know, so look it up real quick because we're right here. And
We'll end on a high note.
yeah, I want to make sure that everybody knows. All right.
All I can think of is Serena Altschul.
Never. Dumb and Dumber TV series. That's not it.
What? No.
I don't know if this is North America, but it looks like it was. This is weird.
Yeah, I was thinking of that too, Ronnie. There's the non-downtown Julie Brown. There's the white chick, and she was in the series Strip Mall on Comedy Central. But I can't think of her name.
Karen Duffy. That's
Nope.
the one. Okay. All right. Well, Karen Duffy was also a VJ. In 1995, she was diagnosed with neurosarcoidosis, a rare incurable disease that attacks the central nervous system. It's like right after Dumb and Dumber came out, she got the disease. Probably from Jeff Daniels. That's too bad.
I wanted to ask you about something real quick.
Sure.
Have you heard of the Big 20?
The Big 20?
The Big 20.
No.
I kind of want to try it, even though I know that I would fall flat on my face. But it is a an annual speed run race.
Okay.
Like, every year it's different. It's composed of 20 segments of NES games.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to run all 20, and your total time is your time for that year's contest.
That's kind of fun.
So this year, what it is, it's September 10th. It's the 5th year they're doing it. So you have to beat one loop of Popeye, which is 3 stages.
Okay.
You have to spell Nintendo and RC Pro-Am. You have to beat the Great Waldo Search.
Ugh.
You have to beat the second boss of Milon's Secret Castle.
Huh.
You have to win one set versus Canada in Super Dynamix Badminton. You have to beat Super Pitfall. You have to beat Ice Climber level 1 through 16. Beat Gardenland and Kickle Cubicle. Beat the Crab and Cobra Triangle. Beat Stage 3 of Mighty Final Fight. World 2 of Kirby's Adventure. Beat the whole game of The Rescue of Dino and Hoppy. Beat the second boss of Alfred Chicken. Beat the Turbo Tunnel, Warpless, and Battletoads. Beat the Stage 7-3 boss in Vice Project Doom. Beat Stage 6 in Gradius, Konami Code Allowed. Beat Malth in Ninja Gaiden, Act 5, Scene 4.
Mm-hmm.
Beat Batman Return of the Joker. Beat one loop of Ghosts and Goblins, and then beat Metroid.
I would get stuck at Ghosts and Goblins.
Oh, absolutely. I would get stuck way before Ghosts and Goblins.
That's actually true. There's some stuff that I don't know. Milon's Secret Castle, like I'd lose my patience for a lot of things. Yeah, it sounds a lot of fun.
They have like YouTube videos of like side by sides. Like for the first one, they had all top 8 finishers on YouTube. You can actually watch a video of them all playing the 20 games as in a race format, and they tell you in advance who's going to win. Like it has them ranked by their position rather than their finishing position, rather than by alphabetical order or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess it's more often than once a year, because the first one was on February of last year, and they're already on number 5 next month. But it's basically like a speedrunner Nintendo World Championship, and I find that really, really interesting.
That's pretty fun. Oh, actually, speaking of, I actually wanted to talk about this tonight as well too. We'll do it next time. But I did meet Thor Ackerland.
Saw that,
which is it was very cool, kind of surreal and really neat. But the NES championship, and I showed a friend the other day, and what the magnitude of something like that was. But I like the idea of this being sort of like, EX plus alpha. It's like a super omega version, because that's not 3 games. That's like 20 games, some of them full, some of them, ridiculous amounts of effort put in. 16 stages of Ice Climbers, like, it's doable, but like that takes a while and it's not even that fun.
Yeah.
So, but I like that idea. I actually really enjoy the concept, all the way through Dino and Hoppy, all the way through Metroid, basically all the way through, Ghosts and Goblins. That's a really fascinating idea, and I think it'd be really fun to, like, at least give it a shot for each one of those games individually to see how far I could get. Is there like a projected best time for something like that? That like, or do you say they change it from year to year?
They change the list of games changes every competition.
Okay,
So
cool.
I posted a link to the first one on your wall, and it starts with Donkey Kong. Like Iron Sword is in there, Tetris and Top Gun. Like,
okay.
So it's a long video, but I think it'd be something kind of fun to just like pop on and watch a bit at a time, or just check it out.
Certainly. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna have to take a peek at that. That sounds neat. Good man. Good man.
Yeah.
There are
All right.
round games, but okay. That's the end. All right. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to check out the Itch Network, Gaming Through the Decades, Media Glitch, and of course Cyberzone at GARetro.com. Thank you guys, and we'll see you next week. Naked.
Oh.